Yeah. All right, good evening. I call the Planning Commission for November 3rd, 2025 to order at 7:01 PM. For the first item of business, we'll do roll call. I am present, Chair Testman. Vice Chair Kilcup has emailed requesting excusal, as has Commissioner Hurley. Commissioner Lambert,
Present.
Commissioner Mruziak,
Present.
and Commissioner Murphy.
Present.
All right. I move that we excuse both Vice Chair Kilcup and Commissioner Hurley. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Looks like we have that. All right. And we do have a quorum. So let me bring up the agenda. Okay. Roll call complete. Agenda. I move that we approve the agenda for tonight, November 3rd, as written. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right, that passes. And public comment, we have no members of the public in attendance in person, so we will skip that. Minutes, request that I move that we approve the minutes dated October 6th, 2025. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right, those are approved. And moving now to old business, looking at the draft climate element goals and policies. Did you want me to do a quick tee up, Director Davis, or do you want to do that?
If you'd like to, yes, feel free.
I just really quick, Director Davis and I met earlier to go over what you find in your packets. We felt that the packet that was provided in the last meeting where we looked at the climate element was pretty comprehensive, right? It included basically the three major iterations of the draft element. If you'll remember, it was the commission's decision that we should conduct some final outreach to the CPAC group, right, to get some clarification on the differences between basically what we forwarded to CPAT via OTEC and then what ultimately came back. So Commissioner Murphy and I were able to meet with the CPAC group, got their feedback. The most vigorous feedback was provided by the tribe. And really, what they critiqued was they felt that the environmental protection piece of the proposed draft element had fallen out. And so that was their major concern. And so I'll draw your attention to what's in our packet tonight, which is more condensed and really just focused on, all right, following this subsequent discussion with the CPAC group and getting that feedback from the tribe that they were looking for more environmental preservation to be present, you'll see that a fifth policy goal was added with supporting elements, but everything else pretty much is what we forwarded originally to CPAT. So I just wanted to provide that context on what you see in your packet tonight. And with that, I'll turn it over to Director Davis for any amplifying comments.
Yes, I think that since we looked at this, gosh, I think back on August 4th was the last time that we visited this. I've gone in and made those reflective changes that we just talked about to the goals and policies for the greenhouse gas emissions. There weren't really substantial or any changes to the resilience, though as I'm looking at this, I feel like it doesn't do a very good job. I just took the previous report that we received from our consultant and I just went in and changed the goals and policies. But now as I'm looking at this, I'm like, oh, maybe we could have been more clear on which were the resilience and which were the greenhouse gas. So it was the resilience that we changed and added the fifth goal. Right. Sorry, I had that backwards. So I think we've got it, but as I recalled from my minutes from the last meeting, we were changing the goals to be reflective of what we talked about with CPAT. And then, I kept the policies, the same policies that we had in there per direction. I actually had to go back and listen to the Planning Commission meeting because I couldn't quite tell from my notes. I wanted to make sure I had it right. So I did change the policies back to what we had in the initial meeting per the Planning Commission's request. And I also heard the Planning Commission say that we could go back and revisit the policies at some point if we needed to. So at this point, I guess we're looking for consensus that the goals in both the resilience and the greenhouse gas are what we all landed on.
Yes, so, do we have slides for this at all?
No, I didn't make any slides.
Okay, that's
for
fine, that's
this.
fine. So I turn it to the commission. What would be helpful here? Do we want to, just double check on each goal line item by line item, focus on goal 5? The goal, for tonight, if at all possible, if we feel this is where we want it to be, would be to go ahead and, move it to council, right?
Well, I would like to take a step back from that because it occurred to me that I think maybe there was an understanding that we had to have this adopted by the end of this year. And that's not necessarily true. So we have until 2029 to adopt our climate element. And I didn't realize that the Planning Commission was told that they had to have it done by the end of 2025. So um, I've recently learned that King County is still working on refining their greenhouse gas emission data. And I'm I'm thinking, if I wanted to bring the goals and policies back because I felt like we left it very unsettled and not the greatest of places. So I wanted to, have the discussion, bring it back, have us look at it. But then I would propose that we maybe take a pause until more data is completed and more cities and King County have had a chance to get their climate element done. And then we come back and take a look at it for future adoption.
Yeah, I think to your point, right? If we go to item 2 in the packet on page 10, it looks like we're not in a position, at least based off of how the conversation has unfolded so far, to actually propose, greenhouse gas reduction targets for 2030 and 2040. I'm assuming that's due to that dependency on King County's
Yes,
legwork.
yes. So I feel like we don't have all the data that we need to fully complete this.
Well, our inventory was completed by OTEC, right? Our city of Snoqualmie.
Well, I asked them to pull back on that because I was a little nervous about OTAC going off and doing their own data gathering that was then ultimately going to be different from the data that all other King County cities were using. So we opted to wait until we got the data from King County and then we utilized that data. But like I said, I'm learning that they're still refining that a bit. And so I would suggest that we find a consultant to go back and take a deeper dive into what we've created thus far. Because I'm not a climate expert. And so I know that the Planning Commission has expressed concerns with our last consultant that worked on this. And so I would like to maybe look at and see what other cities have done and then look at maybe bringing in a different consultant to help us wrap this up.
Commissioner Merziak.
Who is King County using?
I don't know. I'm not sure who they're consulting.
Yeah,
I-
it might
I-
smooth things along if we could align with whatever they're doing.
Yes, yeah, I know, I agree. And I did join a meeting last week with K4C and I had asked that question and they weren't sure, but they put out a call for other cities to see what other cities consultants were and where they were at in their climate element. So I would propose that we take a pause and try to gather some more information around that and then come back with a updated presentation maybe later next year. We've got a lot of work coming up with the comp plan amendments just around the affordable housing, our housing growth targets, And I have a report to go into that here in a little bit, but we need to update our zoning map and everything. So maybe we take a pause and go in and do the comp plan amendments that are required in 2026, and then try to bring the climate back, maybe mid to late next year, and try to incorporate it all into one overall comprehensive plan amendment.
So is the goal of this meeting then to be happy with what we have, knowing that we'll get more data? Is that the goal?
That would be my
Yeah,
recommendation.
so I think specifically, do we feel good with the goals and policies for the resiliency element? And do we feel good with the goals and policy for the greenhouse gas reduction element? If those two pieces are good, then the only pending thing would be to get a final greenhouse gas inventory. We'll obviously balance what we see in that inventory with what we thought we felt good with on the language. And maybe once we have that updated inventory, we'll feel like different actions, different policies are required. And we can address that at the time. And then that'll also allow us to recommend, will it be our purview to recommend specific reduction targets for 2030 and
I
2040?
believe so,
Okay.
but then I feel like
And that'll probably be a recommendation in the
I-
inventory itself.
there's still so much that's, so many cities are currently working on their climate element that, again, like I would just say, let's take a pause and then see how that's kind of the fallout of that from all the data and the studies coming in, and then come back and revisit.
Yeah.
Because when we started the climate element, we were the first city out of the gate. So we didn't have an opportunity to see how other cities were, preparing their climate element or the data that they were using. And I think for a small city like ours, it would be good to see some of the larger King County cities finish up their climate element and then kind of go from there.
Okay. Any high-level comments from the commission? Yeah, Commissioner Murphy?
I'm comfortable with that approach. And I think having sat on the call with the tribe and some of the committee members, I feel like the tribe's additions and comments seemed pretty reasonable, and I think like fit the general tenor of what we were trying to accomplish as well. So I'm comfortable with us kind of, being happy with this, putting a pin in it, and then coming back next year to revisit with more data or maybe another consultant or whatever it ends up being.
I'm glad you brought that up to Commissioner Murphy, because the tribes also is working on their climate element, and they also have a grant from Commerce that they're going through this process. And so I think it would be good to kind of try to better collaborate so that our goals and policies around climate were somewhat aligned. I offered to the tribes in one of our CPAP meetings to try to work on that now, but it was too early for them. So I think there might be opportunities in the future to at least, collaborate a bit or see what they're coming up with and kind of bounce it off what some of the goals and policies that we're trying to create.
I mean, I felt like whatever initial like misalignment may have been more to do with the game of telephone between us and the consultant and them, and then back to the consultant and back to us versus any, I think, substantive points of difference. That was my impression. So
Any other thoughts? Otherwise, yeah, Commissioner
Yeah,
Murphy.
just one. And it's there, but in the resilience sub-element of wildfire and smoke, we kind of brought this up a month ago. It's, what is it on? It's on page 8. It says wildfire and smoke. I think it's good that we've got this, that we had to fight to get this in there. But we talked a little bit a month ago of the fact that when a wildfire burns for 7 weeks and nobody does anything, I mean, that is putting a massive amount of CO2 in the air. And it could undo everything that we do at the cities and the buildings, everything else. And it seems like the county could do more. It seems like the county/state could do more. And again, I'm not sure from a purview standpoint what the city could request, but just saying, well, we're going to, deal with unhealthy air when it's not just unhealthy air. It is specifically that climate gas that folks are most regulating, that it doesn't seem like at the state level or at the county level we're addressing. So as opportunity allows, I think it'd be wise to really focus on wildfires. I mean, if we're serious about CO2, we really ought to do better than we've been doing the last few years, in my humble opinion.
Agreed. All right. So what I propose then is we can just, we don't have slides, so we can go through the packet together. I'll just read the goal, read the policy. I'll scan. If you have feedback, just raise your hand or whatever. You want to do that?
Sure.
Okay. All right. So starting out on page 10, item number 2, goals and policies for the resiliency element. Goal 1, enhance emergency preparedness, response, and recovery efforts to mitigate risks and impacts associated with wildfire, flooding, extreme weather, and other hazards worsened by climate change. To achieve that goal, 1.1, analyze how the municipal water system maintains adequate pressure during a major wildfire event and how it will look under current and projected drought conditions. All right. 1.2, support the development of community wildfire protection plans. 1.3, develop and implement notification alerts within the community to reduce the risk of exposure to wildfire smoke and particulate matter. All right. 1.4, partner with residents, emergency management officials, the Puget Sound Clean Air Agency, and other stakeholders to develop and implement a wildfire smoke resilience strategy. All right. 1.5, develop and distribute educational materials that empower individuals to be prepared for potential disasters. 1.6, adopt a pre-event disaster recovery ordinance to facilitate recovery through planned outcomes and governance. All right, moving on to goal 2. Ensure that the local economy is resilient to climate disruptions and fosters business opportunities associated with climate mitigation and adaptation. All right. In support of that, 2.1, support local businesses and planning for climate preparedness and continuity of operations. 2.2, establish and maintain government-to-government relations with Native American tribes for the preservation of archaeological sites and traditional cultural properties that are vulnerable to climate impacts. I do think on this one, I think it's actually repeated in 5. Let me see. Maybe I'm confusing it. Oh, nope, I'm wrong. So forgive me for that. Okay. All right. And 2.3, protect significant historic sites prone to floods or other hazards worsened by climate change. All right. Goal 3, ensure that public and private development, redevelopment, infrastructure, and facilities projects are resilient to climate change. To support that, 3.1, establish or maintain development regulations that incorporate best practices for reducing the risk of wildfire, extreme heat, flooding, and other climate exacerbated hazards. And 3.2, reduce residential development pressure in the wildland urban interface. Reduce residential development pressure in the wild. Reduce. So I'm just thinking out loud here, but I'm just curious. I just feel like we've got an inherent tension there with you know, the new growth targets we received, right?
Well, and I think there's a lot of, there's still discussion around they're called the WUI maps, so wildland urban interface. I feel like maybe we need to come back and revisit that once we have more information around that. I'll make a note of that. And also use the acronym. I'll put that in parentheses so people understand.
So that's interesting. So do we have a current map for Snoqualmie depicting those areas? And if we do, you're saying that is currently under review for updating?
It was my understanding that they created a map and then that caused a lot of discussions because a lot of people were in that WUI and then were losing their homeowners insurance. And so I think they were going back and taking another look at that, but I've never heard an update around that. I
Okay.
know my insurance put on my homeowner's policy that I was no longer covered by wildfire, but when I called, they said, oh, just ignore that. They're going back and revisiting that. And I said, well, could you send that to me in writing? No. So it's making me a little nervous, but I feel like I need to follow up on that. So
I don't recall
I'll
discussing
put-
that. That's alarming if,
yes,
because of a map change, they change your insurance, really?
yes. I've heard many people say that there is a look at your homeowner's insurance. There's a disclaimer on many people's insurance that says wildfire is no longer covered
And
due to this WUI map.
you live on the ridge?
No, I live in unincorporated King County and outside of North Bend.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, all of North Bend and Snoqualmie was pretty much covered in that WUI map.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, okay.
So yeah,
That
double
is,
check.
that is concerning.
So I'll do some follow-up on that.
Yeah, I think we'll definitely have to plan on looking at 3.2 next time we look at this.
Yes.
Thank you.
I agree with your tension comment, just to say, if we're gonna build and develop and particularly focus on a little bit higher density housing, there is a bit of tension with the reduced residential development pressure on the wildland urban interface. So I agree with that.
Yeah, so we'll see who comes back on that end, but yeah, at a minimum, we're probably looking at some verbiage changes there, but yeah, appreciate that. All right, so that's 3.2, 3.3, acquire properties or easements on properties that are vulnerable to climate exacerbated hazards and are or will become unsuitable for development. 3.4, ensure that the local transportation system, infrastructure, routes, and travel modes is able to withstand and recover quickly from the impacts of extreme weather events and other hazards exacerbated by climate change. All right, 3.5, improve street connectivity and multimodal transportation options, including sidewalks and street crossings to serve as potential evacuation routes. And 3.6, develop and implement an urban heat resilience strategy that includes land use, urban design, urban greening, and waste heat reduction actions. To be honest with you, I'm not sure what waste heat reduction actions would be. Does anyone have expertise on that? No?
I
Okay.
don't have any, again, this leads me back to
Yep.
having
And
somebody.
I'll do some self-education in the,
Then
in the
that would
meantime.
be an additional strategy that in my mind should be shown somewhere else.
Yeah.
They're like reburners. So I know I'm on the industrial side, but something that it will capture the heat inside of a smokestack and reuse it for something else, essentially.
Okay.
You can have them on, like, wood stoves will have them too, where they have an extra ceramic element that will capture the heat going out the stack.
Okay. Yeah.
That can also be part of that
Interesting.
residential use.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. All right, 3.7, plan for stormwater management that relies on low-impact development techniques and elevates the functionality of ecosystem services. All right, goal 4, advance environmental justice and community well-being by prioritizing equitable climate policies, inclusive decision-making, and access to healthy, resilient environments for all residents. And to achieve that, 4.1, create and implement culturally contextualized outreach and education initiatives and materials that will inform the community about near-term and longer-term climate change threats and build resilience. All right, 4.2, build and support partnerships with community-based organizations with the capacity and relationships to convene diverse coalitions of residents and to educate and empower them to implement climate resilience actions. All right. 4.3, support wildfire smoke mitigation and incentivize infrastructure updates for facilities that serve high-risk populations. And 4.4, ensure that all community members have equitable access to green space within a half mile.
Can I,
Yeah.
I don't recall the definition of green space in this case. I mean, does a park count as green space?
Yeah.
Does? Okay.
Yeah, I was just gonna make the same joke. We have 27 parks in this city.
Yeah,
What do
if
we
a
need
park
to
is
do?
green space, then we're good.
They're all over town.
We might need a definition of green space,
I-
though.
If a park, yeah.
Well, it's a commitment, right? So if we're taking on a commitment, it's probably worth that definition for sure. Yeah.
Okay, I added a note.
Awesome. Any other feedback on that one? All right. All right, goal 5. So this was the one added specifically following re-engagement with CPAT. And it is to protect, restore, and manage natural systems that provide ecological, cultural, and climate adaptation benefits. 5.1, support restoration and conservation strategies through land use planning, partnerships, and resource prioritization that promote climate resilience, including water storage on the landscape, healthy riparian systems, and forest health. All right. 5.2, land use and infrastructure planning should consider opportunities to restore floodplain and wetland function to reduce hazard risk and enhance habitat. And 5.3, prioritize the protection of climate refugia and habitat corridors to improve biodiversity and ecosystem adaptation. 5.4, encourage the use of native, drought-tolerant, and pest-resistant vegetation in development, streetscapes, and restoration areas. 5.5, natural resource management plan should incorporate adaptive approaches and reflect projected climate stressors over time. 5.6, protect and restore culturally important ecological and landscape resources through partnerships with tribal governments and indigenous organizations, and recognize the importance of these sites in shaping both cultural identity and ecosystem resilience.
So, question on this one. There's 2 words in there that kind of stick. One is restore, and the other is landscape. So I understand we're restoring the watershed, right? So, and there's, a whole lot of shoreline activities there. But they also throw the second word in there, which is landscape resources. And I'm kind of curious, what are considered culturally important landscape resources?
I might be able to address that, just knowing that there are, like in Meadowbrook Farms, for example, the tribes would prefer that we go in, there's different landscaping that wouldn't necessarily be trees. So, for example, they've got like a camas meadow where they are I think it's a camas bulb that they have a demonstration project for this camas bulb that is of historical significance to them.
Oh,
And I
okay,
think
okay.
that is kind of what I think this is referring to.
Okay. That helps, yeah, that's good.
Okay, good. They would like to see more grass and prairie land as opposed to trees and,
And lawn type
non-native.
stuff. Okay.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, I'm good.
No,
All good?
we're good.
The only thing I'd say for 5.6, it's not an issue right now, right? But like for the final draft would be, we've had discussions on this before. I wouldn't change anything, I'd just add. And I would say, ecological and landscape resources through partnerships with tribal governments, indigenous organizations, and other stakeholders, right? Like all of Snoqualmie. Obviously, there's a specific interest on the part of the tribe and associated stakeholders, but we've got a bunch of stakeholders, right? And so I think the goal should be to engage with all of them in preserving what makes Snoqualmie and the Snoqualmie Valley unique. So, but again, we'll deal with that later. Okay, 5.7, identify and protect cultural and historic resources that may be vulnerable to climate-related hazards or long-term degradation through local historic preservation planning and interagency coordination. Okay, So that is the resiliency element. It looks like we've got some feedback on certain sections, so we're in a good spot there. Any other commissioner comments on the resiliency element? Otherwise, I'll move on to greenhouse gas. All right. So draw your attention to page 12, item number 2. Goal 1, improve the efficiency of Snoqualmie's transportation systems and services to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and vehicle miles traveled. To achieve that, 1.1, expand electric vehicle infrastructure in the public right-of-way and on public property. 1.2, prioritize and promote public transit expansion and use through coordination of land use and transportation planning. 1.3, increase multimodal capacity in coordination with the location of higher density housing and commercial centers. 1.4, create a safe, well-connected, and attractive bicycle and pedestrian transportation network to encourage active transportation. 1.5, integrate complete streets principles into the roadway designs of residential developments. 1, did we review like detailed information on complete streets in previous packets? I don't remember that. So maybe next time, if whatever principles guide complete streets, just as context, I would be helpful for me, so.
Yeah.
We're in the process of combining our development standards for streets so that all the development standards are aligned between Snoqualmie Ridge 1, Snoqualmie Ridge 2, and the rest of the city. And so I will make sure that we have a complete street standard and discussion in that. I'll make a note of that.
Great, thank you. Okay, let me catch up here. 1.6, facilitate the siting of complementary destinations such as commercial employment centers, schools, or education centers, and residential developments. All right. 1.7, address active transportation and other multimodal types of transportation options in concurrency programs, both in assessment and mitigation. All right. Goal 2. Yes.
Sorry, I don't know if we're really adding any to this, but have we thought about requiring all new buildings, like residential buildings, to have EV chargers built into their panels?
I don't know if that is part of the new building code that's under review or not. I know that they're looking at implementing a new building code, but they put a pause on it for now, so I'll have to check on that.
I'm just curious.
And that might be something we want to address through a revised and expanded 1.1. You know, obviously that one's focused on the public areas or whatever, but, and, you know, we could have verbiage to encourage in private development or whatever. Yeah,
Chair,
please.
similar
Councilmember
thing
Jones.
with regard to electric ranges.
Oh, yeah,
Having them be installed as well.
good call. Yep.
And Chair, I think on complete streets, just kind of a bullet point on that, like I guess it's somewhat redundant to something other things here, but like basically complete street says the roadway is for everyone. So all road users, all ages, whether they're driving, using transit, walking, riding, whatever it is. And it's to like build out the street so that all those users can access it in a more
harmony.
equitable way.
Yeah.
Versus, you see the like 8 lanes to cross a sidewalk without, much time. So anyway, I think a lot of that is already incorporated into, I wouldn't remove it, but like it certainly like fits into complete streets principles are already like well represented here.
Thank you. Okay.
Have just as much right to play wiffle ball here as you do to drive.
Yes. Okay, goal 2, I believe, if there isn't anything else on 1. All right. Goal 2, foster higher density land uses in mixed use areas and emerging transit corridors. 2.1, increase density to create more walkable, mixed use built form that encourages the use of transit, biking, walking, and other modes and decreases single occupancy vehicle travel and parking, which I think goes to that last conversation. 2.2, prioritize infill development through zoning and permitting process. 2.3, expand form-based codes where appropriate to better integrate higher density development. Okay. 2.4, reduce parking minimum requirements and establish parking maximums, especially where there are multimodal options available.
Excuse me, I don't remember that one, but I do know that downtown parking was quite the discussion when the King Street lot was talked about developing. There was a real huge concern among the residents about losing those parking spots and talking about parking. So it sounds like this one is saying reduce the minimum and establish a maximums, put a ceiling, not a floor on parking, which I'm just saying it was kind of an emotional issue a couple years ago.
Please.
I think that, not directly related to that, but I think generally like parking minimums tend to like make building new apartments or the density that this goal tries to achieve very cost prohibitive and very challenging sometimes. So some municipalities have chosen to remove the parking minimums that developers are required to include when putting up new units, certain numbers of units or whatever that may be. Now the big if is like where multimodal options are available. So that's a big if for our community for sure. Where, you know, what may work in Bothell may not work quite as well here. But I think I'm generally like in the spirit of that policy, I really like. It's just how it works here is kind of how we'll have to figure that out. So I propose keeping it in, but it's something that will probably warrant initial discussion down the road.
Agreed. Okay. Anything else on 2? Moving on to goal 3. Goal 3, increase housing diversity and supply within urban growth areas to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and support environmental justice.
I don't know what that means.
I guess they're just saying we want to encourage concentration to reduce commuting, basically.
No, I got you. Actually, I read one. Yeah, I got it now.
Yeah, I had to
got
read
now.
it
Yeah, I had to get off
as
the top.
well.
I got it.
Yeah. Okay. 3.1, increase or remove density limits in areas well served by transit and other services within the urban growth area. Three point two, allow middle housing types such as duplexes, triplexes, and ADUs on all residential lots. All right, 3.3, establish minimum residential densities within urban growth areas. 3.4, develop and implement inclusionary zoning to support greater income diversity in housing types. 3.5, plan for and invest in capital facilities to accommodate infill development. And 3.6, maintain a stable urban growth area to reduce development pressure on rural and resource lands.
So just a comment on 3.2, you'd almost have to add a caveat after the last meeting we had. Allow middle housing types, duplexes, triplexes, and ADUs on all residential lots not impacted by the critical areas.
Yeah.
because that, increase, we've allowed them 500 square feet, which is not nothing, but I don't think it's an ADU, right? So,
But with any of this, it would have to meet the current zoning code, so it would, they would still have to comply with critical areas, maybe the shoreline master plan. I mean, there
Well,
could be a number of things that would affect that.
so then, not to put too much in notes, maybe we remove the word all, because you said on all residential lots. Could we just say on residential lots? And then I think, yeah. The word-
You
the-
could say something like qualifying lots.
Yeah, or, I mean, if you just take out the word all, I think it gives you a bit of wiggle room. Saying all means you got a residential lot, you can put up an ADU.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm
And succinct, yeah.
not even sure we really need 3.2 because we've already modified our zoning code to require all that under the new growth targets.
And I'd be,
It's in our
I'd be
zoning
fine with
code.
that too, yeah.
This is basically, this would eliminate those single-family zones.
Mhm.
The way this is worded, because then you could, if you were in what it was typically a single-family zone, somebody could essentially take down that single-family zone and
Put up a
have it
duplex.
become a duplex or a triplex.
Mhm.
Any other thoughts on 3.2?
So take out the word all.
Yeah, just take out the word all. It's too,
Okay.
All right. 3.3, establish minimum residential densities within urban growth areas. 3.4, develop and implement, oh, I already read that one. Let me, let's see.
you got all the way to
3.6,
I bet,
yep.
yeah.
Thank you. Maintain a stable, and I think I read that one. Maintain a stable urban growth area to reduce development pressure on rural and resource lands. All right. Anything else on 3? All right. 4, encourage buildings to use renewable energy, conservation, and efficiency technologies and practices to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. 4.1, promote additional net zero greenhouse gas emission features in all new residential and commercial structures and incentivize green building certification to improve energy and environmental performance. Yeah.
So
Right,
I'm
that's
for
fine.
this, but I think this is an area that I think we should start to talk about at some point down the road, because if we want to, at the same time, create more density, make it easier to build these types of more, these, types of denser housing in Snoqualmie, we also have to look at the cost, right? And the developer's cost. And are we making it so is it prohibitive to do those things, right? But we want more, So I think further research or further data on like what's the like cost benefit in terms of like, yes, more housing and yes, more efficient housing, but where's the line, So
Certainly a great question for any potential contractor is like, what is our carbon intensity reduction for increased density, with just call it conventional construction techniques versus what's the incremental gain from LEED certified, dense housing. Yeah.
right. And knowing this is promote, not require. So like that's like, a key element there too. But like, yeah, I think that's getting a sense as to what that line looks like might help us make a sensible policy down the road.
Very good. All right, 4.2, prioritize the preservation, retrofit, and adaptive reuse of buildings, recognizing the emission reduction benefits of retaining existing buildings. 4.3, require all city-owned buildings to be powered completely by renewable energy by 2029. We talked about this.
We did, and I think I was supposed to change that word to
Okay.
encourage.
Yeah. Anyone else on 4.3? Okay.
I was
We
gonna
want-
make a
Yeah,
comment.
I
Bill,
I
cha-
knew.
Do we want to change it to encourage instead of require? Encourage, yeah, okay.
4.4, maximize solar access where practicable, including planning for solar access when siting and designing buildings, and considering a requirement for solar panels or solar-ready rooftops for new residential and commercial buildings. Okay. 4.5, support PSE's community outreach and education efforts related to renewable energy programs such as opting in to renewable-only energy portfolios. All right. That concludes 4, and finally, goal 5. Enhance tree canopy cover and other ecosystem features to boost carbon sequestration, reduce heat islands, and improve air quality, prioritizing overburdened communities. Uh, 5.1, require open space set aside such as parks for new development. 5.2, improve and expand urban forest management to maximize or conserve carbon storage. 5.3, maximize tree canopy coverage in surface parking lots. 5.4, maintain and manage natural lands, forests, grasslands, wetlands, to maintain or increase their carbon concentrations and avoid conversion of carbon-rich ecosystems. 5.5, maintain small forest land ownership and publicly owned forest properties with carbon sequestration as the goal. 5.6, focus the expansion of tree canopy coverage in riparian areas, especially along the Snoqualmie River. And 5.7, encourage private property owners to maintain healthy trees and vegetation on their properties and consider how to mitigate tree removal associated with development or redevelopment of private property. Commissioner Murphy.
Yeah, I think on that one, it's another one to start. I come back to just knowing how many, I guess, how many trees we have on the ridge that like probably aren't native to this area, and all the issues that has like with the sidewalks upturning and all this crazy stuff. So I think like, yes, encourage private property owners, but then like looking at, how we maintain like healthy native trees going forward, and what we do with the non-native trees that, are also providing tree canopy cover, maybe not the right kind of tree canopy cover we want, but I think that's another key piece, in terms of like how we look at this.
For the record, I've always loved the ginkgo biloba, especially in the fall.
Is that not native?
I don't know. But noted, yes. Okay, so that concludes the greenhouse gas element. Any other feedback from commissioners?
I just, again, I mentioned it, I just mentioned it again, I think on the biggest statewide emission of greenhouse gas is these wildfires in terms of the CO2 being tons and tons of it. And then they let these wildfires go for 7 weeks at a crack, wait for rain to put them out. And sometimes, because they don't seem to care if it's out there somewhere and you just do a little mitigation at the cities. And if we're really serious about CO2, I think at the county or state level, that should be addressed. I know it's not in our purview, but I think that should be addressed. So, and there is one other thing that may be in here, but maybe not. We brought this up maybe a month or two ago. There's a very big thing happening that this is not acknowledging at all with relation to the massive power requirements due to AI. And I think it was Commissioner Lambert mentioning that a query on ChatGPT is like running a light bulb for, I don't know, a minute or something like that.
An hour.
And what is an hour? Really?
Yeah.
So at any rate, and nobody's saying we're not going to do AI. Nobody's saying, oh, we need to reduce power, or grow it by 10%. People are saying, oh, we need 2x the power, use small modular reactors, we got to increase power everywhere. And I think that's a very big thing happening that could blow this out of the water, or at the very least impact it, that at the county level and the state level, again, not really our purview, there ought to be something related to this big shift, because this big shift happened maybe in the last 2, 3 years. And I don't think any of the regulations are acknowledging it. So anyway, I would put that out there. Does that make
I've
sense?
made a note. Yes, I think we did talk about that, like around data centers and what those
Yeah.
power that the data centers are requiring.
Yes, and I think Commissioner Lambert was mentioning that the um, normally excess hydroelectric power that the state has is pretty much chewed up right now. So, I mean, there is a genuine need to increase power dramatically. And so this little bit of conservation here and there don't take into account the AI, the energy needs of AI, which is growing like crazy.
And also the water consumption, that energy and the water consumption that they,
Does it use fresh
And
water?
reduce snowpack.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
uses
fresh
fresh
water.
water, really? Yeah, okay, then yeah, that one as well. So, I mean, that's a really big thing going on because everybody's saying we can't be second, we gotta get on, it, we gotta get on it, and yeah, we should somehow acknowledge that that's a unknown, an asterisk thing to talk about.
I've got it.
All right. Anyone else? All right. Hearing none, that'll conclude old business, the draft climate element goals and policies. We'll move on now to council liaison report with Councilmember Johnson.
Greetings, Commission. I've got 3 items. The first one's pretty short, that the city received a clean opinion and complied in all material respects on its audits for 2022 and 2023. Just mentioning in passing that the auditors are required to tell places that don't use so-called gap financing that that's a better way, or at least it's an enhanced way of tracking how the city's finances are going, but that in consultation with staff, it would require more staff, which require more funding. And for us, that would be like trying to fix a problem where there isn't a problem. So, if there comes a point where like, hey, we keep getting so-called findings in our audits, then, maybe we could circle back to that. But the auditors didn't say that it's really a problem. It's more just that they're required to inform places that don't use gap financing that technically it's better.
So let me understand. So
Yeah.
we got a clean
Yeah.
audit for 22, 23.
Yeah.
And they usually lag a couple years?
Yes.
Okay. Then, yeah, it'd be good.
And then 2024, I believe that they are going to be finishing that one soon as well. So, yeah. Also there's some COVID lag as well that's still being caught up for a lot of cities in the area. Okay, the next thing is I'm going to tell you probably more than I should about the council's consideration of an e-bike ordinance, mainly because I know that it's something that a lot of people care about. We get a lot of comment. Planning Commission has brought it up before, just like, hey, is council working on this? And the thing is that while we've known that it's been an issue for a long time, you can't just say, well, I guess we're just going to ban them all, when you haven't figured out what definitions are and you haven't decided if maybe that's a bridge too far beyond what's really needed. So council's been digging into that. Our public safety committee has spent the last year plus working on this along with our law enforcement officers. And currently the state of it is that it would define what an electric bike is and what an electric motorcycle is. There'd be 3 classes of e-bikes, which would all be pedal assisted and have a maximum power of 750 watts. Class 1 is covered by all that. A class 2 would also have a throttle, and a class 3 would have a maximum speed of 28 miles per hour. The other 2 classes have a max speed of 20 miles an hour. An electric motorcycle then would largely be treated essentially as a gas-powered motorcycle, and it would have a higher power than 750 watts, and they can go up to very high speeds, beyond freeway speeds. So essentially, the city would be treating them as a gas-powered motorcycle. There'd be a minimum age of 16 for electric motorcycles, and a motorcycle license would be required. for driving one of those. No passengers would be allowed on electric motorcycles, and electric motorcycles would have to have a headlight. Violations could result in impounding and escalating fines of up to $750. Riders of electric motorcycles and of electric bicycles must wear a motorcycle helmet, which would also be defined in the ordinance. The penalty for not wearing an appropriate helmet is proposed to be $75. And just to be clear, these laws would apply to public streets and properties like parks, where electric motorcycles would not be allowed in the first place. So that's the current status. It has not been approved by council, but that is what is currently on the table and is being discussed. So hopefully within the next few weeks, we might have something that we could actually adopt. So we have heard the cries of the public and the planning commission as well, and we have been working on it. It just takes time. When elected officials do things, it affects everyone. So sometimes government does seem to move slowly, but if it moved fast, then there could be the consequences could be dire, as they say. So that's why it's taken a while. The third thing is that the council will likely soon be adopting a strategic plan that includes a lot of work for the planning department and for the planning commission as a whole. Among these are updating the future land use map, the zoning map, potential annexation of the UGA, continue affordable housing efforts, revitalize Falls Avenue for retail, and generally support infill development. So not too much, I guess. But those are all things that are council priorities that are working their way into the strategic plan, and they're going to have to be funded, getting all of that work done. So I'd anticipate that funding all of these priorities, along with others that are also in the strategic plan, not directly related to planning, will just the funding of those will itself be a priority probably for the council in the next year. So that was all that I had for you folks, but I'd be happy to take questions.
Let me go in order. Commissioner Amaruzia? Commissioner Murphy?
How do the e-bike proposals stack up with other municipalities? Are they more stringent? Are they about the same? Our surrounding area, Issaquah, North Bend. Semantic,
Yeah,
whoever.
the most important is with North Bend is to have some sort of continuity there. So both cities are looking at trying to adopt something that's fairly similar so that someone that's riding down the road doesn't get to a point where they're suddenly in a different city and now the thing they're riding on is in violation. Whether North Bend adopts exactly what ours is, that's their business. But the intent, I believe, from both cities is to have some level of uniformity. And then in terms of other cities, like Issaquah, for example, again, just in broad strokes, similar, but and some of these definitions do come from RCWs as well, so Revised Code of Washington laws as well. I don't know if city attorney had anything, acting attorney had anything to add.
Yeah, nothing to add. I
Yeah.
would add, though, that I believe North Bend already passed an ordinance.
Oh, that's right, they did.
e-bike
Thank you for reminding me
ordinance,
that.
And if I'm not mistaken, our ordinance or proposed ordinance mirrors theirs relatively closely. There might be some minor detail changes, but I think for the most part, substantively, they're about the same.
Yeah, thanks for the reminder that they actually did adopt theirs. Other things.
Commissioner Lambert?
So the e-bikes, like the pedal e-bikes, are going to require a motorcycle helmet?
That was my understanding in reading it, unless I'm misunderstanding.
I would need to look over it for clarification. I
Yeah.
believe the motorcycle portion was for
The
the
e-motorcycles, which
over
makes
the
sense.
750 watt, but I would need to reread it.
I'll go back and read it, but that was what I had gathered from it. And again, like I said, we have not adopted it yet, nor is it ready to be adopted. So there are things like that that anything really that I said could be altered by the time it is adopted. But that's my understanding of where it's at. No one over here.
Do you want to bring up what was decided in the CD committee tonight as far as
Oh,
going
yes.
forward?
Yeah, so the Community Development Committee moved along the critical area ordinance to the city council. But there was one change. You could probably guess what it was. We did bump down the 500 square feet down to 250. And to explain why, it's very simply just that in the discussions that the city had with Fish and Wildlife, that was the bargain that was struck. So if we stay at 250, we would be much more secure in terms of if someone wanted to come and challenge our ordinance. In terms of meeting the requirements of best available science. So that was the reason for the recommended change. But as I said very clearly in the committee meeting, that I certainly appreciate the Planning Commission's very hard work on that. It took a while to get it done, and largely the increase from 0 to 250 was in large part because of the Planning Commission's feedback at the time. Because if you remember, the first time through, there was no 250 square feet, it was just 0. So we got a bargain, I suppose, as it is. Yeah. But otherwise, everything else was adopted. Yeah.
Councilmember Johnson, if you want me to revisit it, I have the draft for the
Mhm.
helmet requirement for the e-motorcycle that was presented to council for the first reading. If you want me to read that. It states any person operating a motorcycle, electric motorcycle, motor-driven cycle, or moped on city streets, right of way, or alleys of the city of Snoqualmie, or on any city property as defined in SMC 10.35.10 subsection D, shall wear an approved motorcycle helmet designed for safety and shall have either the neck or the chin strap of the helmet fastened securely while the vehicle is in motion.
Yeah, so I think where I got tripped up was on the motor-driven cycle as opposed to a motorcycle. So maybe that's one of those things that need to be clarified.
Yeah, maybe clarifications needed because I also remember the chief, there were different classes. There was like class 1 through 3
Right.
of the motor-driven cycle.
Right. Yeah, so that's why I had taken that interpretation. If that wasn't the intent, then again, maybe we need to go back and look at that.
And yeah, I agree. There could be clarification on that.
Any other questions for Councilmember Jones? Thank you so much.
Great, thank you.
All right, Director Davis for department report.
Okay, thank you, Chair Testman. I just want to remind the planning commissioners that there's some cybersecurity training that you all received in your inboxes. And so our IT director is just looking for people to complete that. And I don't think so far he's got many people that have done that. So it's just, I haven't done it myself either yet, at least at this city. So just a reminder to kind of go through that training so you can say you completed that. I also wanted to give you an update on our comp plans. So, and I'm just going to kind of go through, give you a little background just to refresh your memories mostly. But so state law requires that PSRC, which is the Puget Sound Regional Council, they require that they review and certify our comprehensive plans, including our countywide planning policies, which you may have seen if you read up on some of the stuff called CPPs. That's your countywide planning policies. But that includes plan review on regional growth, housing, and intergovernmental coordination to address these regional issues. So Vision 2050 provides new and additional focus on several issues, including housing affordability is the big one. So PSRC used to just provide comments on your transportation element of your comp plan, and now they look at your housing and your land use additionally, as well as I think they really dive into the whole comp plan now. So they recently provided us a conditional certification on our 2024 comp plan, just really recently, like September 25th. And they found that it was substantially consistent with the GMA and the Vision 2050, provided additional amendments are incorporated by the end of 2026. And that mainly focuses on our housing element. So in addition, King County notified the city that our growth targets were ratified on October 27th. And I think many of you probably have seen the press releases that went out last week from the mayor. So the next steps we have, or as I need, according to the PSRC conditional certification, I need to take a resolution before the city council by the end of November that basically says we've acknowledged the conditional approval and we will work to amend our comp plan to reflect the revised growth targets as well as documenting capacity to accommodate the housing needs allocations. So the GMA requires that the housing element document sufficient capacity for moderate, low, very low, and extremely low income households. The plan's land use designations and zoning maps will obviously need to be amended to provide capacity to accommodate allocated housing needs at all income levels, including emergency housing. So the zoning map update will go through a public process and we will have open houses, public hearings, and the planning, at the planning commission level next year. So we need to be thinking about how to actively engage our residents during this process and really encourage public participation. I know when we did the open house for the climate element, do you remember we like brought in pizza and it still didn't like bring us a lot of people? So I'm not sure like what that sweet spot is, but I've heard that we just don't really get a lot of public participation. So I don't, but I think the zoning map is important that people are aware of the changes that are happening. The whole Snoqualmie Ridge needs to be rezoned. It's all currently zoned mixed use. So we need to go in and reevaluate like what the built environment is and find new zones that are appropriate to that built environment so that the people that live on the ridge aren't living in like a legally established but yet non-conforming, property at this point. So we need to, I mean, there's going to be a pretty deep dive on that. I've talked to the ROA and they've indicated that, they can help with that outreach. They can certainly send email blasts out to the residents. And then we have, of course, ways to get more information out down on the outside of the ridge too. But it will, it will go through a pretty rigorous public process next year.
Just a comment. When, I think it was 2023, and there was an element of the comp plan that we did an open house at the library. We took over half the library.
Uh-huh.
And it was pretty packed. If you say that want to revisit zoning in the Ridge and do the same thing, I don't think you have any problem with public participation. I think
Okay,
you'll-
good.
I think you'll pack the place.
Okay, so I have been hearing people say more like you have to go to where people are at. So happy to go hold meetings up on the ridge as well as downtown.
Also tell them you're rezoning the gravel parking lot. That seems to get,
That will.
Yeah.
The gravel parking lot, you mean the gateway?
no,
King
King-
There's a street
King
lot?
Street.
Oh, the King Street
Oh,
lot.
Yeah.
Throw that in for good measure.
yeah.
Yeah. Did you want to
Sure.
jump in?
Oh,
Councilmember Jones?
Yeah, one of the things that I've been wondering about is recently the legislature a couple of years ago passed a new law that within or that for future HOAs they couldn't have the kinds of exclusionary housing that we see on the ridge where it's only single family homes for almost the whole thing. And if at some point the legislature revisits HOAs that already exist and go after them as well, then if we don't have a zoning map in place, then who knows what people might be able to do. So I think that that's one reason why we should have zones in place. How they get enforced and stuff is all kind of going to be a tangle of dealing with the HOA itself and those sorts of things. But if we don't have something in place, if that were to occur, then it could be chaos.
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Another thing, speaking along those lines, this year, the state legislature passed SB 5148, which puts in place the builder's remedy provision, which has been in California for a little while, which says that if your housing plan does not fall within certain like affordable housing requirements, and you don't have the funding to also back those up, the developers can just go and do what they want. Or it's kind of, they can override a lot of the local zoning laws to build if they have a plot and they're ready to go and everything is there. So I think it's another like impetus for local governments to kind of get, you know, stay ahead of these things. And there's a different, you know, carrot and stick approaches, and this is certainly stick here. But I'm glad that the city and the planning commission has a full schedule of this stuff next year, because it's important work.
Yes. And then I wanted to mention too that the strategic plan, I know Councilmember Johnson just touched on this a bit, but it's going before the Finance and Administration Committee tomorrow evening under Agenda Bill 25-100 with a resolution to adopt going before the council on November 10th. So the city's priorities are guided in the city's strategic plan. And this was a council project that did have public outreach involved, but I just wanted to make you aware that you're welcome to attend the F&A committee meeting and provide public comment tomorrow evening. Alternatively, you can provide written comments to the city clerk ahead of the council meeting on November 10th. So other than that, well, we touched on the zoning map updates in 2026 for comp plan amendment. The climate element we've talked about tonight, maybe delaying that a little bit, though I did get an email also from the state saying, well, if we did come up with extra funding, would you be interested in getting your funding before 2028? Because our comp plan isn't due till 2029. And I said yes, because I see that a lot of other King County cities have already started their climate element. And like, I know Bothell, for example, I think has just wrapped theirs up. So if we can get the funding and get this done sooner than later, I'm like, I think it would be good to just go ahead and, you know, we've already started it. We've done some good work and try to wrap it up with a different consultant next year if we can make that happen. So I will keep you posted on that as I know more. And I know I still have the Historic Preservation Code amendments to bring back to you. And wireless, our city attorney reminded me, like, what's going on with the wireless? And I'm like, well, we haven't got to that yet, but that's still on our list of things to tackle, probably starting next year. So that's all I had, unless anybody has any questions of me.
Any questions from the commissioners? All good? No?
Okay.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Director
you.
Davis. Okay, so that concludes department report. Let's move on to future agenda topics, items of commissioner interest. I'll go to Commissioner Maruziak.
Just the curiosity on the holiday schedule. I mean, November 17th, I assume we're still on, and but then we get in December. So how many, it seems to me like we're gonna have maybe 2 to 3 at max meetings left this year.
Probably two more, because we have one meeting in the 1st of December, but we usually cancel the second meeting,
Yes, it'd be the 17th of
Seven.
November and the 1st of December.
1st of December. Last year, we had a potluck, I think, at that December meeting.
We did, yeah. Yeah, somebody really went overboard on that, so yeah, we have to talk about this. Yeah, because after the 1st would be the 15th. Yes.
Yeah, so we wouldn't have a meeting on the 15th.
Okay, so basically there's 2 meetings left,
2 meetings, yeah.
November 11th, December 1st. Okay, that was it.
11, 17, and 12, 1. Okay.
Good.
Good.
Commissioner Murphy?
Good.
Commissioner Lambert?
I hate to harp on it, but this, the walk signal on, I always forget this, is River? No,
River, uh-huh.
and 202 is still broken.
How is it broken?
If you are over on by the real estate office, if you press the walk button right there, it does not light up the lights.
Oh, okay. I'll let Public Works know about that tomorrow. I didn't realize that. Did you mention that before at a different, I somehow missed that one.
No worries.
Super important now that it's dark.
Yeah, I almost got hit there the other night.
I
I was
believe it,
running.
yeah. It's dangerous.
So it's only on that side of the street?
Everything
that
else
if
is
you-
working.
But, yeah, okay. Okay, I'll make a note and let Public Works know. I'll send him a note tonight before I
you.
leave.
All good?
Yeah.
All right, I don't have anything, so.
Wait,
Oh,
I just remember one thing. We're ready for a big snow. We're ready for 3-4 inches. We got everybody lined up just in case it happens.
Is it supposed to snow soon?
I was asking this if we're ready because when you get surprised, it can be no fun if you're stuck.
Right, yeah. Parks and Public Works, you know, we always tease them that they're really our first responders because they have to clear the roads before anybody else can get out. So
true.
I'm sure they're ready. They had mentioned
They
this
were good.
morning that they have the sand piles and everything is ready to go, so.
Is there like some forecast? Are you basing this on a impending snowstorm?
No, I just like asking
Just
before,
better be
before I get hit, are we
safe than
ready?
sorry.
Yeah.
You have
Yeah.
a dowering rod or?
Yeah.
All right, if there are no more items of commissioner interest, I move that we adjourn at 8:17. Can I get a second?
Second.
So-
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, have a good night, everyone.